Time flies when you're having fun here. I want to make sure we have as much time as possible for the content today. I'm really excited for this topic because we've done a lot of webinars together, but we haven't done one on objection handling. And in particular, what we talked about is how, and this is something I used to struggle with early on in my sales career too, is how we can be too nice in how we approach it. And if you're being introduced to Belal for the first time, the reason why I have him on here is we've had a lot of fun collaborating over the last year plus. He's been a 7-time founding sales member at startups. So he's been in the trenches building stuff from scratch. And I don't know, what do you call yourself? A consultant? Expert? What do you label yourself? Yeah, okay. Startup advisor.
I don't know. Something like that.
He's got a lot of superpowers, and one of them in particular, one of many, is the ability to really kind of cut through the fluff and break this, what you call the paradigm between buyer and seller. So, dude, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Thank
you. I'm super excited.
Thank you for having me again. I love working with you, Jason. It's an honor, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you guys joining, 250 plus of you joining, taking this hour to talk about this. And yeah, I mean, this subject, man, there's a few things in sales that if you get right will dynamically change the trajectory of your career. There's a couple things that are just pivotal cornerstone things, and objection handling is one of them. The data is so definitive on this. Elite sellers turn objections into conversations. Average sellers get shut down by objections. It is as night and day as you want it to be. It couldn't be more opposing. So getting objection handling as a skill down, and it is not something you're born with. I wasn't some master objection handler when I started in sales. I sucked at it. I don't think you're born with that skill. You have to learn it. You have to learn it. And the best way to learn it is from other sellers that have already accomplished it, not from reading a book, not from trying to look at some guide. You've got to hear somebody doing it and just mimic. It's literally just mimicry. So there's a few things that I want to cover with everyone today. One fundamental piece of this is that some things are not objections and some things are. The distinction between those two. The second is mindset. And the third one is really about that social paradigm that we've talked about multiple times of buyer and seller, and how to do what's unexpected when you face an objection. If you combine all three of these things, I'm telling you, you will dynamically change your trajectory of your sales career. It's not even an exaggeration to say that.
Dude, I'm so excited to dig into this. Okay, one quick thing before we dig in. We're trying something new here.
Oh, yeah.
Really help us get the word out to some other folks. I'm going to share my screen real quick. If you guys could, right when I take the screen share off, we'd love it if you take a screenshot of this and post it onto LinkedIn and tag us. And if you have any questions that we don't get to answer, Belal and I are both good about going through and answering your questions. So if we don't get to it, post something on LinkedIn, take a screenshot here, tag us, and use the death to fluff hashtag. And we'd love to help you out. This will help get the word out about what we're doing too. So if you get some value today, we'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's dig in. As we're going, you guys, make sure to use the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen here in Zoom. That'll help me kind of segment out some of the questions. So if you have something specific that you want to get, let's go ahead and talk about that. But I think Belal, I think what would be really good to start with is you want to just kind of prompt everyone with what their biggest challenge is with objection handling right now, and we could get a good sense of what everyone's dealing with. Go ahead and share in the chat, you guys. What's your big challenge when it comes to objections? Is it the mindset? Is there a specific objection maybe that you come across? What is it? We want to customize the content for you guys today.
We know some of the big ones already. I can make some assumptions. I'm not interested. Send me some more information. I'm not the right person. We already have a vendor for that. So I know those 4. Okay. So outside of those 4, and I can cover all those 4. I'm not the decision maker, right? No budget. Yeah.
Panic. Yeah, take me off your list.
Panic is my problem.
Yeah, I panic. It's 911 mode.
Yeah.
Not at this time. Yeah, on my way to the hospital. That's a tough one. Engineers are too busy. People getting hung up on. Hey, what's up, Jordan? Jordan says busy. I'm
Yeah.
gonna call me back. Okay, this is really good stuff. So
Let's
I don't
start with the main four. Do you want to approach the main four first, Jason? Like the typical, I'm not interested, I'm not the right person, we have something in place. Those are like, and send me some information. Those are the four that, like, no matter what you sell to, you hear those. Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna tackle them in that order first. All right. So let's start with I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I mean, I hate to break this to you guys, this might hurt a little bit. That's not an objection. That's a negative review. Right? Like, let's do an analogy. Okay. Say instead of pitching a product, you're pitching a movie idea, and the audience is giving you, Rotten Tomatoes. That's what's happening when you're getting, I'm not interested. Your pitch isn't good enough. It's just not compelling. They don't care. And here's why. Odds are when you're getting, I'm not interested too much, you're talking way too much about yourself and not about them. You are talking to them with the curse of knowledge, meaning you know your product, you know your buyers, you know your unique selling propositions. They're unaware you even exist or who the hell you are. And you're talking to them as if they know who you are and are interested in what you have to offer. That's problem number two. And the third problem is it's not relevant in addressing the job that they're getting done today, right? You're not acknowledging the fact that they're getting the job done today. I'll give you a classic example of this. I've had sellers message me and they're like, Belal, a lot of my prospects use X. And so when I pitch them, they tell me, I'm not interested. I'm like, okay, send me your pitch. Guess how many times I see in there, Jason, X mentioned in the pitch? Zero. Zero times. I'm like, you just said to me that all your buyers use X. Why wouldn't you state that? Look like you're an informed individual and just come out the gate and be like, most companies like yours, Jason, use X to try to address Y. The problem with X is it doesn't typically handle these three things. Why wouldn't you just state that? Why are you trying to pretend as if your buyer isn't using X? In fact, one of the greatest superpowers a seller has is to say what's on the mind of their buyer without them having to say it.
Yep.
Just state it. Like, I'll give you an example of, you guys, some on this webinar, I've seen my mic drop method for cold calling. If you haven't, we can maybe share that afterwards as a resource. In one of the examples of the mic drop method, the method is permission, problem, provoke, and then promise. When you state your problem, in one of the companies that we were doing the method on, all of our buyers already used another product. We were ripping and replacing what they already had. Guess what our talk track was? We listed our three biggest competitors right in the first 15 seconds of the cold call.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say, I'm not interested when you tell somebody what they're doing. It's not about you, right? It's about them. Hey, Jason, I already know that you use Google Docs, Zoom Info, and Zoom to try to build out your list for your webinar and content series. It's hard to say not interested to that. You're like, yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm.
What about it? Right? That's not something easy to say. I'm not interested. I'm not interested is not an objection. It is a negative review on your pitch. So you need to shift your mindset from pitching them to stating a problem that's highly relevant to them. Because people don't say, I'm not interested when you state something about them instead of something about you.
Oh, man. I love this. So, okay, let's backtrack a little bit here into, so I hope what everyone's taking away here is if you're getting a lot of not interested, it's what you're saying before that that's causing that is what I'm getting from you. It's not about people just say this and we need a way to handle it. It's about preventing it, which I'm really all about. Objection handling should be more about how to prevent objections than how to respond to them. So with not interested in the companies, does anyone, I'm curious in the chat, if you sell against a competitor that you know, so this is, you call this rip and replace, right? So if you sell a solution, give me the name of the competitor in the chat, you guys. If what you're selling, you compete against another company a lot. Give me the name of that competitor or those 2 or 3 competitors. Give me the name of that in the chat. Oh, this is really good. So DocuSign, Sendoso, Fright Quote. Yeah, Stripe, Chorus. So it looks like we got someone from Gong or somewhere here.
Yeah.
That's sweet. Okay. Can you break this down again, Bilal, with someone? And how do we know if we should bring up a competitor or not? Let's start with that. How do you know if that's a good decision or not?
If it's common. I mean, if the significant vast majority of the cases of your buyers, look, as a seller, your superpower in creating relevancy. Okay, I'm not talking about personalization. Let's just okay, really quick, guys, time out. Personalization. I send a message to Jason about his move recently to the Northwest. That's a personalized message, because if I sent that to anybody else, it wouldn't make sense. Relevancy is stating something that is highly relevant to Jason, but anybody who's in his position, like sales trainers often struggle with building an audience. Okay, that's relevant to any sales trainer, but it's not personalized to him. Okay, so that's the difference between personalization and what's relevant. So you want to create relevancy in your message, because relevancy is far more critical than personalization. Okay, I can send you a personalized message that's not relevant. You'll be like, great job researching, but I don't care about this right now. I can send you a relevant message that's not personalized and still get your attention. So the superpower of a seller in being relevant is stating the status quo. Let me repeat that again. The superpower of a seller in being relevant is stating the status quo. If I can name the status quo of your world, Jason, I immediately have your attention because I show you that I'm informed. It has nothing to do with my product. It has nothing to do with my offering. It has nothing to do with my ROI or my value propositions. It's just being able to state in a coherent, clear manner the status quo, the job, how you're getting the job done today. Okay. And so when you can state your competitors early and upfront, you buy a huge amount of credibility immediately. Okay. So an example, this would be like, I saw one of the sessions with DocuSign. So if I'm selling against DocuSign, and I know the significant vast majority of my buyers use DocuSign, I'm going to state right out the gate, hey, Jason, a lot of companies rely on DocuSign for e-signature because they pioneered the industry. But over the last decade of them building the e-signature space, what has happened is they have no longer been able to deal with X, something that DocuSign doesn't do that your product can. How are you handling X? So now you're just targeting the status quo and what doesn't work about it. And immediately your buyer is like, okay, that message is about me, not them. So it's a lot harder to say I'm not interested when somebody states, hey, I know you use DocuSign. I know that they're a leader in the space. And I also know that they don't do this particular thing. How are you handling that? What are you doing to address that? There's such power in stating that. All of a sudden, I'm not interested disappears. It's a lot harder to say I'm not interested to that. You see a dramatic decrease in I'm not interested, because again, it's not an objection. It's not an objection to handle. It's a negative review of what you stated before.
Yeah. So I love this, the state what the buyer's thinking and start with the status quo. Because another example I could think of is if you know the technology that the person is using, obviously you should use that. And you don't have to, I don't know, what would you do actually? If you knew that the buyer, because you use built with or some sort of tool that tells you the technology, would you be open about that? Hey, I did some research and from what I understand, you guys are using DocuSign and here's what we hear. Or would you just kind of state companies like yours are using DocuSign? Would you be specific if you knew the technology?
I would absolutely be specific. What's the harm in sounding informed? I mean, how does it backfire to show somebody, hey, I already know what you use. Hey, Jason, I was on your website using built with, and I saw that your tech stack is, you've got GTM, or you got Google Tag Manager, you've got Facebook ads running, and I noticed that you don't have any pixel tracking when it comes to your click through from your blog. How are you handling conversion rate optimization from your blog to your website without any pixel tracking? How hard is it to say, I'm not interested to that? It's really hard. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard when somebody's talking about you to be like, oh, I'm not interested in hearing about me. Hey, I didn't want to have a discussion about me and my problems right now. Like it's really easy to get people talking about their problems. And again, that you always end with a what or how question, an open-ended question. What or how are you
Yeah.
addressing this thing? So I'm not interested, not an objection. I'm sorry. It's not an objection. If you think it's an objection that you need to handle, good luck. You need to address it before it happens. Okay. You need to change your pitch, ditch it, ditch the pitch, and start talking about the status quo and the problem with it. Open up that way, and you will see I'm not interested disappear, virtually disappear.
I want to address what Lydia said in the chat. Couldn't you just ask what they're using first and then lead into the what how question? I have some thoughts on that, but I want to know what you think.
I'm not a fan of asking it, but like you have to be informed. Like you're interrupting me with a cold call. I'm not here to do your job for you. Like who's burden, who's the the burden of responsibility is on the seller, not the buyer. The burden of responsibility, you're the professional seller, they're not the professional buyer. So you got to come prepared. So I really don't like asking somebody that. But now there's prospects are a different level of like tolerance. Like if you're calling the CMO of a SaaS company, good luck. Their tolerance is zero. Like they get hounded by prospecting messages all the time. So you better bring your A+ game and nothing less. You better be creative as hell and come up with something really good. If you're reaching out to like regional directors of health plans, people don't get a lot of prospecting emails. So you can get away with a lot more with them than you will a CMO of a fast growing SaaS company. So like every prospect's appetite's a little bit different.
Yeah, I love that. You have to demonstrate business acumen when you're prospecting. So even if you throw out a technology they might be using or a way that they're handling, even if you get it wrong, allowing them to correct you is still good too. Oh, we're not using DocuSign actually, we're using Proposify. Because it's going to be the same way that you handle it, but you're suggesting something that shows that you know what you're talking about and that you did some research and you have some relevance. Okay, I think that's a really nice just kind of bow that we can wrap up on not interested. What one do you want to tackle next?
So the next one is the send me some more information, right? It's
Yeah.
brutal. You're in the call, you're in the discussion, and they hit you with send me some more information. Now, again, if you're getting send me some more information and you were pitching before, I'd argue that more times than not, that is not an objection. That's them trying to politely tell you I'm not interested.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were pitching before and you're getting send me some information, I'd argue that's just a more polite version of I'm not interested that some people just don't tell you, but that's really what they mean.
Yeah.
If you're using this method of stating the problem just right out the gate, talking about the status quo and how they're getting the job done, and then asking them how they're handling it. And after that, you're getting somewhere along the line, send me some more information. That is a legitimate objection that you need to handle. So in the first case, if you're getting send me some information and it's just a nice push off to say I'm not interested, there's a route we want to take. And then if we're getting it later on in a legitimate way, there's a route we want to take. Now, let's think about this. How do people buy? People buy by learning about some new way, going back and rallying some resources, some people, some others to create a consensus or willingness to change, then driving that change forward and then committing to it, right? I mean, that's pretty much anything. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're buying, there's some level of change required in it. And so therefore you need to create consensus to move that change forward. And sometimes it's a large team, sometimes it's a small team, sometimes it's an individual, but either way, there's change involved somewhere in the process. So send me some more information when it's a legitimate objection, not a polite way of saying I'm not interested. The question you want to say is, who do you plan on sharing it with? Because if they really need information to talk to somebody else about, they should have someone in mind, right? A legit person that's actually interested, that's asking you to send some information, has a reason why they want that information. Who are you going to share this with? Who else is going to, yeah, no problem. I can send you some more information, Jason, out of curiosity. Who do you plan to share it with? Because that will help me decide what to send you. If you're going to share it with some peers, I've got something. If you're going to send it with your manager, I've got something. If you're going to share it with your subordinates, your employees, I've got something. I need to know what you plan to do with it. And they, if it's a legitimate buyer, will have in mind who they plan to share it with. Yeah, actually, I do plan to share it with another product manager on my team, or I do plan to share it with my manager. Okay, great. I've got a piece that speaks to that. If it's a I'm not interested, polite way of saying I'm not interested, and you're getting send me some more information, this is where you just need to be blunt. And this is like your ability as a seller to read the room. When I get send me some more information and it's just a push off, I'm telling them, you know what, Jason, I got to tell you, most of the times when people tell me send some more information, it's just a polite way to tell me they're not interested. And that's totally okay. The last thing I want to do is spend my time sending you an email that's just going to crowd your already crowded inbox. Would it just be better for me to call back later this year or something and just skip the whole email entirely? Can we just not do it? Because I don't want to send you an email and then call you 6 more times if you're not really serious about this.
Yeah.
So just tell me to walk away. I'm literally telling you, just open the door and I'll walk out. I'll jump out. You know, if you open the window right now, I'll jump out of it and get out of this conversation because I don't want to try to sell you when you're not interested in buying. I have way too much to do.
Are you seeing the chat?
Yeah. And it works. I mean, it works. Like people will be like, you know what? Yeah, it would be better if you called me in like 6 months' time. I'm like, in 6 months' time, we won't even remember each other's name. Do you recommend I say something at that time to refresh this conversation? Because I can't even remember what I had for lunch last week. And just get them. Like be blunt, be blunt, disarmingly blunt. Like, look, I don't like sending emails to people that don't need them. It's not what I like to do. That's not my job. My job is to sell people. So pressure test them, right? Just be blunt and pressure test them.
What I love is this kind of comes back to the 3 things that you mentioned at the beginning is it real or is it fake? This allows you to figure that part out. The mindset and this paradigm shift, you're doing both of those things. You're totally breaking. It's almost like in TV shows and movies when they is it called breaking the fourth wall? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
When they start
where they talk to the camera. Yeah, they talk to the audience.
You're almost inserting this amount of just real, genuine, I'm a person and this is going to require work. And it's work I'd rather not do if you're not really serious about looking at it. And it totally breaks that paradigm between buyer and seller where it's just person to person talking. I love that, man. Is there
Wait, I want to address something that Kelvin wrote here because he said that can come off too aggressive. You could lose prospects that way. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe you need to build a relationship. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Kelvin, because I think that's a legitimate concern. What you're saying is a legitimate concern. What if I'm being too aggressive and offending people? Here's my counterpoint to that. I'm going to steal something from David Priemer. Consider the alternative. Consider the alternative. Okay. You are, by not being blunt and by sending us some more information, more likely going to spend a sales cycle on somebody that's not interested to buy. And moreover, you're making an assumption that relationships are built by cold outreach, which is not the case at all. Like if you actually look at the psychology and science behind relationships from people like the Gottman Institute and others that have done like quantitative analysis of how relationships are built, cold email is not how it works. Your cold call and cold email is not the path to building a relationship with someone. All right. And if that's your goal by doing it, then I think you have a much more niche approach than the general audience here. And you have to think about your cold outreach in a very different way than what the majority of sellers do. So, remind yourself that you're the exception, not the norm. You might have a really small TAM and a really small ICP list, and you only got 20 prospects to work with all year. That's cool. The significant vast majority of us do not live in that world. So yeah, you're going to have to approach it differently. But nonetheless, there's no harm in pressure testing someone's actual interest, because the last thing you want to do is be chasing somebody that legitimately is not interested, but was just not willing to tell you that because they were being polite. It's a game of timing. Sales will always be a game of timing. Clearly your timing is off. Find the right time. And that might be a couple months later. That might be several months later. And that's okay, right? Because the best sellers make their money in the follow-up, right? That like the majority of a seller's money comes from the follow-up. So get the timing right. And again, I don't want to send you an email if the timing is wrong. Let me send you the email when the timing is right. I'm all for that. I love emailing you when the timing is right. I'll do it all day. But when the timing's wrong, I don't want to write emails. I just want to skip that.
I think I love that answer, by the way. I think it's also really important to talk about being blunt doesn't mean that you're an asshole to people. Okay, it's disarmingly blunt. Disarmingly blunt, you can do with a smile on your face. Hey, usually when people say that to me, they mean this. You know, you put a smile on your face. You don't have to be aggressive. It's about stating what's on the other person's mind. It's about addressing the elephant in the room. Yes. That's what it's about. It's not about being aggressive, you guys. We are so anti that. We have so many conversations outside of stuff like this about that. It's not about that at all. It's about saying what's on the other person's mind because you know that they're thinking it. And it's saying that thing that makes your heart race a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit nerve-wracking to do this if you've never done it before, for sure.
Yeah, it feels great. Oh my God, like the reciprocity that you get back. Wow. I mean, people will tell you like, yeah, actually, it would be great. It would be great. Actually, I don't really want the email. If you could just message me in 3 months' time. You know, like no issues at all. They will remember you, by the way, because you'll be that one seller of all the sellers they spoke to that month, that quarter, that year, that did not send them the email, but did live up to their word and called them back. And you know, when I call them back in 3 months' time, I'm like, hey, Jason, you definitely don't remember me, but I was that guy that didn't send you the email because the timing was wrong 3 months ago. And they're like, I do remember you. I'm like, well, I promised you I'd call you back in 3 months. Did I screw this up or is this the right time now? They remember you because sellers don't do that.
Yeah. Dude, I love this. This is a great one for send me more info. Do you have any to kind of button that one up? If you do send over info and let's say it's legit, someone's about to run into something or whatever. Hey, and it's just kind of, hey, I'm about to run into a meeting. This sounds great, but you'll send me some more info. Is there any recommendations you have on, what are you looking to accomplish with the email? Are you going to ask for a meeting? Are you just going to send it over? Are you going to follow up again? What do you recommend if it is legit and you send over the email?
Again, we go back to that standard kind of buyer's process. They're sharing it with someone because they're trying to build some consensus or at least acknowledge the severity of the status quo, the way the job's getting done today. And that's what I want to understand. I want to be like, I want to put in the email, okay, here's the information you requested. You mentioned you were going to share it with your boss. Whether they shared the name of their boss or not is not an issue. Some might be uncomfortable sharing that. Some might be comfortable sharing it. You should ask, right? Who do you plan to share this with? I plan to share this with some of my teammates. May I know their name? Yes, you may. No, you may not. Totally fair either way, right? I don't mind if you don't share the name with me, just that you have someone in mind. I'm going to put that in the email. I'm going to say, here's the info you can share with your teammates. If I have their names, you know, Claire, Tom, and John, if I don't have their names, I won't say it. And then I'll say, can I follow up with you in the next 3 days after I send that to see what the general, you know, opinion was about that, so that if it is of interest, we can schedule a time to discuss it further. Right? Because I know there needs to be some conversation internally about what I'm about to share, and I want to see that. And when I see the opens going up on what I share, I pick up the phone and call, right? If someone's opening your email, for the love of God, stop what you're doing and pick up the phone and call them. It's okay to tell somebody, hey, I saw you're opening up my email. That's great. What was the general consensus on that? What happened from that?
I'm going to you can hold me accountable to this if you don't see it. I'm going to make an image and share it on LinkedIn with your face on it. And it's going to say, if someone's opening up your emails, for the love of God, pick up the phone and call them.
Stop what you're doing and call. It's like someone visiting your website. Your email's the website. It's your little personal website with them. They're on your website. Call them. What are you doing?
What one do you want to tackle next? We got not interested. We got send more info. What about
Yeah.
competitors? You want to dig into that one? That's one I know that people get a lot.
Yeah, we have a vendor for that, right? Or
Yep.
some version of that. We use something for that. We use you know, some that happens, right? I've got something for that. Really common. Okay. Now, again, be disarmingly blunt. Be disarmingly blunt. So, you know, I'm talking to you, Jason. I tell you, yeah, you know, a lot of obviously I should be stating the competitor up front if I can, but if I'm in a situation where I can't, and somebody says I already have a vendor for that, right? Because again, if it was DocuSign, I already want to just say DocuSign in the first 10 seconds. So I take that away from you. You can't tell me I already have something for that because I already said you have something for that, right?
Yeah.
So I took that off the table. But let's say I don't, or my pitch is one where I don't always know if there's a competitor or not. That can happen. And somebody says we have a vendor for that. Okay, I'm gonna acknowledge it. Be like, oh, okay, makes sense. Or gotcha. Um, are you married to them? Like just straight blunt. Just it's a one line.
Yeah.
Pause. Right. And if they don't say anything for a couple seconds, then because you know there's different shades of liking your current vendor. There's I love them, and there's like they get the job good, like done good enough. Where are you? Right? There's shades. There's shades of I've got something. Right? I'm happy with my current vendor. Happy like married, or happy like it's good enough.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like an instant response. There's no delay. It's just snappy. It's just right back. Like where do we stand?
Yeah.
Because if they say, no, I'm married, like I really love them. Congrats. I rarely hear that. So good on you for finding something that works for you. Because the majority of companies I speak to are not totally happy with their current vendor. Before I let you go, one more question. Why, what makes them so great? Why are you so happy with them? Just so that I can learn. Because odds are they're going to tell me something that can help me on my next cold call. And then if they say something like, no, I mean, it's good enough. Okay, tell me more, right? Now I'm going to trade my cleverness for bewilderment. And I want to be like, really? Why is it just good enough? Or could you tell me more about that? Right. So I turned the objection into a conversation by just pressure testing again. What do you mean when you say we've got something? Like you love it and you're totally happy, or you've got something and you're thinking to yourself, well, it's getting the job done good enough today. Because I can work with that. I can't work with this. If you love what you got, I can't sell you anything. Good on you for finding something that works for you.
Yeah. I love the trading cleverness for bewilderment. There's everything about your tonality and everything is true, genuine curiosity. Tell me more about that. And just pausing. And that the tonality is so important. You don't have to fake the tone if you're genuinely curious. Be really curious. Think about you're talking to a person who you've never met before. You don't know what their workflow looks like. You don't know what they're working on. You don't even know what they're doing when you call them. Get curious about what it is that they're doing and how they approach this stuff, how they're using these tools. Get really curious. You're going to learn so much, and people are going to be so much more receptive to that disarmingly blunt question if it comes from a genuine place of curiosity.
Yep. Yep.
Here, let's look.
Exactly.
Okay, people are asking about the recording. That's like the question of the last 2 years. Yes, we'll definitely send out the recording, you guys.
Every webinar is recorded unless stated otherwise.
We'll definitely send it out afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple angles that this sometimes goes. I'm thinking of a cold call I recently did, and it was for a CRM that for universities, and they're already using Salesforce. So I didn't do the married thing, but something kind of equivalent. And she's like, "Oh yes, things are going really good." Right. And then when I started digging in, there was some, how do you dig into pain points that, okay, pain is the wrong word to use. How do you recommend digging in if they're using a solution, but they don't realize that it's actually a lot more work than it could be? So for example, in this specific situation, and I'm bringing this up because I think this is pretty common, Salesforce is going to require a really robust team to manage and take care of, and it's super expensive. It's way more than a university would need in this case. So if someone's like, hey, we're pretty good, I'm pretty happy with it, it's all set up. Is there any recommendation you'd have around like where to take the conversation next? Would you use some of those kind of poking questions, those how, what oriented questions to dig in a little bit? Is that what you suggest doing next?
Yeah, I mean, it like you nailed it, right? They're saying to you, yeah, we've got everything set up. I'd be like, awesome, because I know it's exhausting to set up Salesforce. I mean, you're using the same product that like IBM uses for like 10,000 sellers internationally. Don't think your Salesforce instance is any different than theirs. Like you got the same out of box product. So it's really hard typically to set up. And what I understand is usually ongoing, you need some resources to maintain what you've set up. What are you using? Right? I'm just implying that I already know. I know you have to use something to keep this going. So what are you using? Are you using like an outsourced service? Are you doing it yourself? Do you have another team that you have to talk to every time you need to make a change in Salesforce? How do you do it? Right. And again, I'm just sounding informed. Like that's an informed question. I know, I get it. Like I totally understand what it's like to deal with Salesforce. When it is set up, it works. It's great. But that's the whole catch.
Yeah, I love that. So if anyone here is listening and you're thinking, well, they might not really quite know what life could be like if they weren't using that solution and how much maybe easier or less frustrating it could be, we're essentially doing the same technique that you brought up at the very beginning. We're going to use those how and what questions to continue digging in a little bit, come from a place of genuine curiosity, demonstrate business acumen at the same time. And you know what? The person, because I saw people commenting on this in the chat, dude, they might be really happy and that's okay. Like you said before, and our good friend David Priemer recommends, dude, I don't want to get into a sales cycle with someone that's like totally happy with everything and they don't come in with any sort of open-mindedness to explore something different. That's okay.
Yeah, it's
It's
totally
okay
okay.
to not get a meeting from someone in a cold
Yeah.
call. It's okay.
If anything, learn from them. If anything, learn how did they do it? Why are they the exception, not the norm? How did they find something magical that works for them? Learn from it because odds are you can use that on your next call to sound more informed. Hey, I know some people do pretty well with DocuSign, but it requires these really weird, scenarios for them to work. A lot of people aren't in that scenario. They're more like this. So how is it working for you? And it's like, oh shit, this person knows. How would they know that? Because I talk to customers of DocuSign all day when I prospect them. So I learn. I learn more about DocuSign than some of the DocuSign reps know because I talk to their customers all day.
Yeah, I love that. It's using every interaction, whether through email or phone, to inform the next one. It's like this is one thing that is so frustrating. Well, it's not frustrating actually. Wrapping the mindset around, I work with a lot of reps and companies where it's like, okay, we came up with a copy for our emails. Our sequence is good to go. Let's just hit start. No, the work doesn't stop. The work is just getting started when you come up with messaging.
Yeah.
A lot of the folks that I work with, it's like they go through 5 or 6 iterations of messaging because they're constantly taking the feedback like you talked about. Oh, dang, there's that little nugget that they got from that cold call that informs the email messaging that they build into the pitch of their cold call. So keep that in mind too, you guys, when you're doing that. Do you want to dig into some, people call them gatekeepers. I like calling them assistants. Do you want to dig into a few of those types of stuff? I see a lot of people asking questions about that too.
Yeah. What specifically are people asking? Yeah, let's dig into that.
So the most common one, and let me know in the chat, you guys, if you're getting something really common, is do you have a meeting set up with so-and-so? And then the other one would be so-and-so's in a meeting.
Yeah.
Those are the two ones that I hear most often in call recordings. I never get those objections usually when I call people. So it might be something that would prevent, but I'm curious for you with when a person asks you, hey, do you have a meeting set up with so-and-so?
This one's murkier because you know, some people will say, and I do like this approach. I didn't do it because it's not my personality, but I've seen people be successful in not, just saying like, hey, I'm calling for Jason, right?
Yeah.
Who is this? It's Bilal. Is he expecting your call? He should be, something like that, right? Something like very like authoritative, and then getting transferred into the to the actual decision maker from the gatekeeper or whoever it was. I've seen that, and it works. It totally works. And there's some other people that talk about that, like Benjamin Dennehy and Beck Holland and a few others go into that kind of method. And I get it. And if you can do it, power to you, go for it. Whatever works for you, make it happen. It's not my personality to do that. I'm uncomfortable doing that. I don't sound authentic when I do that. So I don't like to. So when I do call and the gatekeeper says something like they're in a meeting, I'm going to say something back like, I'd imagine they must be really busy. Like you're probably looking at their calendar and I'm sure it's just meeting after meeting after meeting. Did I get that wrong? Yeah, it is. Okay. So odds are, even if I got through to them, I wouldn't even have their mind share. Is that right? Like they wouldn't even be, yeah, they really wouldn't. Okay. Is it just easier to email them? Like I've got this email for them, jason@blissfulprospecting.com. Is that the best email to send them? And I can tell them that I got in touch with you, but because their calendar's so busy, email was the best method. Would that be all right? You'd be surprised. Gatekeepers will be like, yeah, that's fine. Or, you can send me the email as well. I'll be like, great, can I like CC you or CC them for just the visibility? Because now all of a sudden I'm turning that into potential, like not warm intro, but let's say less cold intro. So my email might say like, hey, Jason, spoke with Vanessa.
Yep.
I just got off the phone with Vanessa, Jason, and she was telling me that your entire week is just packed with meetings, and this was going to be the best way to get in contact with you. That I've CC'd her. This is in regards to X. All right, and like that's going to stand out because most most sellers are not carbon copying your assistant or gatekeeper on the cold email. So I like to go that route, and I can tell you right now, you will get pushback, and some won't give you that. If they're like a really good gatekeeper, they'll totally deny you, but a significant portion will. And that's just easier on my personality than the whole like, hey, this is Bedad calling for Jason, like that kind of authoritative thing. I don't do that very well.
Yeah. Okay. I want to highlight something you said, because this is a great technique, building the relationship with the assistant and asking if you can CC on the email. And then what you can also do is ask, hey, and can I give you a call back if for some reason I have trouble getting a hold of Belal? And building that relationship, that works really, really well on the enterprise level, especially. That's a technique I see working extremely well. The other thing too that you can do, I don't know if you've tried this, I've seen this work pretty well, is if you ask them, hey, let's say, Belal, that what I had to share, and I'm happy to dig into what I want to share and why I'm reaching out. If it was really important, just out of curiosity, how would you typically get that information over to John? And sometimes what you'll figure out is that depending on the person, they might say something like this. Usually I'll just print out the email and put it on his desk. Interesting. Okay. So what would I have to be talking about? What's John working on right now that would be so important that you would print it out and put it on his desk? Well, it's like that. Sometimes you get little nuggets like that of how they get the information over. They might put a calendar invite on the person's calendar. They might personally get the email and then forward it over to them. They might bring it up in a meeting. If you can ask around and get a little curious around how they pass off important information to their boss, you get all kinds of cool little nuggets and you can get that person's help in getting it in front of them.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. We got about 10 more minutes left here. What's another really kind of common one? I'm looking through the Q&A.
We did that. I don't know if we did. I'm not the right person. That's a really common one.
Oh yeah, let's do that.
All right. So I'm not the right person. Okay. Again, like that could be correct. Maybe they're not the right person. Like it's okay. So they're just like, and again, on a fundamental level, is this an actual objection or is it something else? Like, did you think that was the right person and it truly isn't? Or is this actually an objection? They are the right person and whatever you said didn't click for them. So they want to push you off. This was an extremely common one when I worked at Trynet. We were 100% outbound, making 80 dials a day. We were calling CFOs of fast-growing SaaS companies across the country, and we wanted to talk to them about HR, their HR services. So what did they want to say? I'm not the right person. You need to talk to HR, which was just a death trap, right? Like you go to die if you're calling HR to sell HR services. You always want to talk to the CFO first. Okay. So again, when I was getting this objection time and again, no, you need to talk to our HR manager. And I'm like, God, I don't want to call them. I want to talk to you. You're the CFO. I needed to change what I was saying for them to stop telling me that they were the wrong person. So this took a little bit of psychology. Okay. You see this sometimes in like if you watch those lawyer shows like Law and Order and stuff where you're like leading the witness. Okay. There's some psychology behind leading the witness and why it's not allowed in the courtroom, because you can manipulate what people say. This is crazy. This is science. You can manipulate what people say based on the order of what you ask. Okay. So if I want to avoid people telling me I'm not the right person when they are the right person, I need to manipulate how they're interpreting what I'm about to say by changing the order. Okay. So there's a couple of things at play psychologically. One is foot and door technique. If I get you to agree to something small, the likelihood for you to agree to something big skyrockets. Okay. That's number one. Number two, substitution heuristics. The order in which I state something and ask will change how you interpret the question. So an example of this was, and David Primer talks about this in his book, Sell the Way You Buy. There was a set of researchers that would ask some people, what's your outlook on your life? And then ask them, when's the last time you went on a date? They found no correlation between the two. Then they switched the order. When's the last time you went on a date? What's the outlook on your life? And they found the last time they went on a date had a massive impact on their outlook on their life, when before it didn't. Because by bringing up the dating scene before asking the question, they got that in the person's mind and manipulated the answer. So this is how I want to do it on a cold call. So I'm calling these CFOs. They're telling me I'm not the right person to talk to HR. I'm like, shit, you are the right person. This isn't working. So when I get, I'm not the right person, I beg, no issues. I may have already researched who is in HR, right? So I know the name. Yeah, I'm assuming that's so-and-so's department. All right. But let me ask you before I let you go, Jason, really quick. Are you the one that approves the spending on health benefits, or is that HR department? I do that. Okay. And are you the one tracking the year-over-year rise in costs on the health benefits, or is that the HR department? I do that. So then how are you handling your second largest cost rising on average 9 to 15% year over year? What I did is I got you to affirm that you're responsible for the finances. And I'm going to ask you a finance question related to HR. It's a lot harder on that third question to say, no, go talk to HR.
Yeah.
Because I just made you own it. It's your job, man. You just said it, Jason. You said that you're the one that's responsible for the spending. You approve it, and you're the one tracking it. So why the hell do you want me to go talk to HR?
Yes. So you're also, I love it's called the substitution heuristic. Is that what it's called? Yeah, it positions and frames the question. I mean, this is really big. This is how we ask questions in this webinar too. There's a specific order that we go through because the answer that we want a specific answer so that we can help, right? And the order of those questions really helps a lot. I love if we kind of step back here, what's needed in order to do this, it sounds like is I need to really understand the different people that are a part of the buying process for whatever it is that I sell. So if I'm selling an HR solution, I know that HR is involved in that solution, but I know that finance is involved in it too. And I need to know what a CFO cares about versus what a chief, HR officer cares about. And you're asking pointed questions. This is how you get introductions to people too. And this is how you multi-thread after a first meeting. You ask questions of that person that they can't answer, that HR person, without the CFO. So then now there becomes a need for that person to hop on the next call versus it speeds up the sales process, Belal, if both of you are on. So,
yeah.
What's the benefit to the other person? The benefit is that the conversation is much better. We're getting everyone in the same room. We can talk about the financial component and then also the employee, aspect, the employee happiness or wellness or whatever it is, that you're selling. I love that, man.
Yeah. I mean, just, and so the science to it, just to like break it down the process, and I agree exactly what you're saying. You can bring people in by asking questions that the other can't answer. That's exactly right. The science to it is the way you do these leading questions that are, again, there's a reason why they're not allowed in the court, but you can use them on your cold call, is you're going to ask yes or no questions. Okay. Somebody says, I'm not the right person. My mind goes to, okay, I need to ask them 1 or 2 yes or no questions to show them that they are the right person. So it might be like, I'm not the right person, right? And I'm like, okay, are you the one that no problem, Jason, totally understand. Who do you recommend I get in touch with? XYZ, talk to them. Okay, great. Before I give them a call, before I let you go, are you the one that handles sales training? Or is it them? It's me. Okay. And are you the one that approves the spending on that, or them? It's me. Okay. How do you pick the right vendor? Are you just going purely off cost, or do you actually look at the qualitative benefits to the training? Something, right? I'm going to ask some open-ended question, because I
Yeah.
got you to agree to 2 things. It's a lot harder when I ask you the 3rd question for you to say, now go talk to so-and-so, because I just affirmed that you are the right person then. And I'm not going to have a very good conversation if I call them.
Yeah. You know what I would call these are momentum building questions. It's like those first couple small questions build some momentum in the conversation so that the person doesn't feel like an interview interrogation, that kind of thing. So we can sprinkle in these close, because there's just so much advice out there. It's like, ask open-ended questions. And then Gong puts out something that I completely disagree with around, don't ask open-ended questions in a cold call. I'm like, okay, dude, whatever. Okay. You can do both. There's a time and
But
place for both styles of questions. What
yes,
about the quality of the question? If it's, hey, what are your top priorities this year? That's a terrible open-ended question.
agreed.
You're not
Agreed.
teeing up that question that well.
Agreed.
Okay, so I got one last question for you here before we take off. If you could give yourself advice as a rookie seller, or your first couple years going into it, knowing what you know about objections now, what advice would you give your early 20-somethings self?
God, yeah, that's a great question. Okay. I look back and I hate myself for doing this over the years of trying to be, thinking that by being polite, I would get the result that I wanted. Okay. Now, I'm not telling you to be rude or disrespectful, but I'm also telling you, cut the politeness. Just cut it out. Okay. I'd love to send you an email, Jason. No, you don't. No, you don't. Don't say that. Right. I'd love to circle back with you in 3 months' time. No, you don't. You want to talk to them right now. Don't say that. Stop trying to think that that politeness is getting you anywhere. Or like I do the permission-based opener like you do, right? So like, hey, can I have 27 seconds to tell you why I called? And they go like, sure. Right. Most sellers would then go into it. I'd be like, my apologies, Jason. It seems like I caught you at a bad time because you scoffed right now. Is it just easier to call you back tomorrow or something like that? There's no issues. I mean, maybe you'll have 27 seconds on Friday. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm vulnerable and being disrespected. So look, I mean, I got a list of people to call, man. If you don't want to hear it, or you've got like, your cat died this morning, or you ran out of your favorite cereal, I get it. Shit happens. So like, okay, I can just move on, man. Like, just be present when you're in the cold call, to not put yourself in a situation where you're getting disrespected, right? Where you're putting yourself in a lower than status. Okay. These are people too. They put their pants on every morning just like you and I do. They eat just like you and I do. They watch Netflix just like you and I do. They don't have some sort of higher form of intelligence than you and I. They make the same mistakes we do. So, don't talk to them as though they're like holier than thou, and somehow your politeness is going to win them over. It's not. In fact, your bluntness is going to win them over. Your distinction is going to win them over. Your respectability is going to win them over.
Dude, love it. This has been so valuable, man. I want to drop in your LinkedIn profile here. If you're not connected with Belal on LinkedIn, you guys, let's blow up his LinkedIn profile. There's several hundred of you on here. Let's give him some connections, give him some love. Thank you so much, man. This was really awesome. And thank you everyone for the engagement and the interaction and all this stuff. This was cool. Thanks for coming on, man.
My pleasure. I love talking about this stuff. Please use the what Jason, do you want to share it again, Jason? The take a screenshot, post it
Okay.
on LinkedIn. If we didn't get to your objection or your question, add it and we'll try to address it on LinkedIn to make sure we get everything answered for you guys, because I want you guys to be successful in objection handling. So take a screenshot of this, post it on LinkedIn with a hashtag death to fluff. We got you.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a killer rest of the week. We'll talk to you later. We'll see ya.